This conference will now be recorded.
All right, so we'll continue from where we have stopped yesterday. So yesterday we were taking a look at the message structure. So we did take a look at an example. So we'll see a few more things about the message structure to understand what is a component of a message and how do we navigate, what are the tools that we have in order to go ahead and interpret an HL7 message and look at that. So let me pull out a sample HL7 message. So as we can see, this is a sample HL7 message for an ADT. So we will talk about what an ADT is later. But apparently we did look at this example yesterday. So if we take this particular message and if we look at for each message, we understood yesterday that we have segments and each and every segment will have individual fields. So if you pull out one segment and if you just take a look at the PID segment to understand in detail, we did see how to navigate through a segment. So whenever you want to navigate through a segment or whenever you want to navigate through an HL7 message, you call out the segment name or you just mention what is the name of the segment. So, and the way we navigate is to count the number of fields that we have. So what is a field? Anything that is between two pipes is called as a field. So pipe is the field separator, is what we have seen yesterday, and whatever is there within or between that pipe is called as a field. So we start the numbering from one. So this will be field number one, field number two, field number three. This is field number three, four, and five, and six, and seven, and so on. So field number five is always dedicated for patient name, and we saw this yesterday. And then we have field number seven. I'm just picking up a couple of examples. So field number seven is for DOB, field number eight is for gender, PID 8 is for gender. So this is how we navigate through the HL7 message. Apart from this, if you want to navigate through a guarantor segment where you will have guarantor related information, or if you want to navigate through the insurance segment where you have insurance related information, you call out that segment name and then you start counting the field numbers to say specifically which field that particular person, which field has what kind of information in that particular message. So we try to understand what is there till this point, but there are few things like components which will be there within fields. So from yesterday's structure, we saw that each HL7 message will have a segment will have fields, and fields are further divided into components. Components are again further divided into subcomponents. So where do we have the scenario of components and subcomponents? Okay, so usually what happens is now PID5 is dedicated for patient name, right? Within patient name, there are multiple things that can be combined together to become one name, which is nothing but you have patient's last name, you have patient's first name, patient's middle initial. So these aspects are present within patient name. So now the need for further breaking down the name is necessary, which is why we break down the field into components. So wherever there is a possibility of these kind of things, you will see that the fields are divided further into components. So there are other um, justifying reasons on how a field can be, whether a field can be further divided or not into components. So it is completely dependent upon the data type, which we'll be looking at in the future. So for now, just understand that any field can have components or may not have components. It depends on the data type. For patient name, um, we see that patient name has multiple components. First name is one component, last name is another, middle initial is another component, and so on. There are many other things like suffix, prefix, um, your title, like someone will have a doctor, or someone will have some other thing. So in that way, all of those individual components are also present in PID5 itself. So how is that separated? So now if you look at this particular message, we see that this is the patient name, right? So the patient name here has three components, and I told you yesterday that component separator is represented with the help of a caret symbol. Okay, so here we are seeing there are three components: component number one, component number two, component number three. Okay, so component number one is last name, component number two is first name, component number three is middle initial. So in this way, a field can be further divided into components. So we will look at an example of subcomponent when we come across it, because I don't want to confuse you right now. But we do have the scenarios of subcomponents later, which we'll be looking at with examples as we go through deeper understanding of each and every field. But for now, we just need to understand till components. That is more than enough. So if you want to navigate till the point of component, then how do we call out, or how do we tell someone what field or what component I am referring to? So we'll follow the same process. We'll call out or we will specify the segment name, PID, and then we will specify the field number, and then we specify the component number. Okay. And if you further have subcomponents, then we will mention the subcomponent number. Okay. But we did not see this now. This structure has to be followed. It is like a tree kind of structure. We know that, right? Yesterday we spoke about the tree structure. You start at the root, and then further branching will take place, where you have to navigate through each branch and then reach the final point. So in the same way, for for each segment, you have to give the segment name and then specify its field number and specify the component of that particular field, and then specify the subcomponent number of that particular component. Okay, so now if we follow this process, then how do we navigate through the first name of the patient? So we'll call out the segment name, and then we'll call out the field number, which is number 5, which is actually indicating a patient name. And then we saw that we have component, which is nothing but this is component number 1, component number 2, and 3. So this component that we are talking about is the actual first name. So PID 5.2 will actually include first name of the patient. PID 5.1 will include last name of the patient. Okay, and PID 5.3 will include the middle initial. Okay, and one more important thing which I did tell yesterday, that if data is not present in certain field, then we leave it blank. It's not that we'll replace it with some other value. For example, this is maiden information. If maiden information is not there, we just leave it blank. Or for example, if date of birth is not there for the patient, for example, they did not provide, then we leave that particular field as blank. We don't insert some other data, or we don't transmit some other data through that field. This data is always dedicated for date of birth. Either you have date of birth or you do have nothing. It's not a scenario that you will just move the fields here and there. So that is how the standards are defined. So, and we navigate through the message this way. And later down the line, we will see how to navigate to the components. And we'll also talk about field separators and all later, how we understand field separations or how we understand navigations in field separations and all. But this is the basic methodology. So you might be wondering, if you're very new to HL7, you might be wondering, should we keep numbering to understand which field has what kind of information? Initially, I would recommend yes, so that you will know which field has what kind of information. It is not essential to mug up or learn everything, or you have. It's not that you have to know each and every field, but there will be few fields that will be repeatedly used. For example, anyone who works on HL7 knows that PID5 is for patient name. So these kinds of information can be that I mean it will register when you count. That is the best way is what I have seen. But if you are not comfortable doing that, you have few tools which can break the HL7 message for you and then show the structure or show which field has what kind of information. So one of such tool is there are many tools out there in the market which are for free, like HL7 Inspector, HL7 Soup, or HL7 Spy. So there are many tools. One of such tool is Smart View HL7 Viewer, Smart HL7 Viewer. So let me open that and I will quickly show you how to use it. So this is Smart HL7 Viewer. You can go to this website called So you have this website called Smart HL7 free tool. So you can go here and you can download the tool. So this is the message viewer. So within this website, you have these tools, integrate a message viewer. So this is the one which we are seeing right now. So you can go ahead and click on launch to download it and use it. Okay. So yeah, here you have the download link. So you can download that from here and use it. Then once you download it, you can just that will open window like this. So click on load and then go to your sample HL7 message and it will load the HL7 message for you. Once it loads, you can individually select each and every segment and it will give you the number of the segment as well as it will tell you what that field is all about, number of the field, and it will also tell you what that field is all about. So if we are seeing here, we see that this field has patient name, field number 5. So PID 5 has patient name. If you want to further break down, on the right hand side, you can see the component level breakdown. And at the bottom right corner, you're also seeing the subcomponent level breakdown of the HL7 message. So this is a very good tool which comes in handy. But use this only if you're thorough with how to navigate and you at least know few fields, and then start using this tool to quickly look at that. Now I use it to find out which field has what, to quickly take a look at that. But in the initial days, I used to number it and learn, or so that I can register which field has what kind of information. So again, it's up to you, whatever you're comfortable with. If you want to learn, or few people will just go through the tool and learn or keep in mind what field has what information. So now let us jump to, now that we have understood the navigating mechanism and we also understood what tools we have, how do we navigate through fields and components, let us jump on to little deeper concepts of event types and what is an event and all. Any questions so far with respect to reading HL7 message or something? All right, so I'm not hearing anything. Let's jump on to the next topic. So yesterday we did briefly take a look at an example of what is a trigger event. So I told you that the entire hospital workflow that we have gone through, which is the basic generic workflow, what we have seen, is basically divided into many different events. So registering a patient is an event, or scheduling an appointment is an event, placing an order is an event. So there are these entire hospital workflow is divided into chunks of events that are happening in the real time world. So when these events are happening, the necessity for data to move from one system to another system is inevitable. The data has to be generated, and it has to move from PM system to EHR, EHR to lab, lab to EHR, or lab to billing department, and so on. So there are many scenarios. So provided as we have the scenarios of events being generated, these events are called as trigger event, which forms the base for any HL7 message, or HL7's core backbone strategy of how the data has to move. These events are called as trigger events, and what you're seeing on the screen is the official definition of trigger event. And that an event in the real world of healthcare creates the need for data flow from one system to another. So that real world event, which is creating the necessity for data to flow, is called as trigger event. So there are a couple of examples. Patient admitted to hospital. So this will raise the requirement of data moving from PM system to EHR system. And an observation, basically an order, lab order being placed on in the EHR will be sent over to the uh, lab system. So that is another event. So there are many events. We are just looking at few sample events. So let us take a look at what are the possible categories that we have in order to understand what events can be possible in the real-time HL7 hospital workflow. So we'll be taking a look at the generic aspects of the workflow of what we have seen yesterday. So based on that, we will divide it. So the categories that we have are registration, which can generate few events, and we have appointments, and then we have labs, and then we have charges, and then we have pharmacies and insurances. So as I said yesterday, we did take a look at this slide yesterday as well. So registration, appointments, labs, and charges are the one which will deal with HL7 messages. Insurances and pharmacies deal with a different standard altogether, which we are not much worried about because they are not with the HL7. So we will ignore that particular section, and then we will take a look at registration, appointment, labs, and charges. So these are the terms that we are seeing right now to for our understanding. Okay, but HL7 has different notations to represent these categories. Usually we call them as message code in terms of HL7. So let's look at the alternate names of these ones in terms of HL7. So when you go back, so registration is called as an ADT message. So we have these things. So a registration message is called as an ADT. It has the message code. This is called as message code, and it has the message code of ADT. ADT is nothing but admit, discharge, and transfer. So anything that is related to admit, discharge, and transfer will fall under the registration bucket. Okay. Similarly, we have appointment schedule is represented with the help of the code SIU. SIU means scheduling information unsolicited. So usually unsolicited in the sense it is a unidirectional message flow to keep it simple. Uh, if you or we can say that it doesn't expect any pairing response from the destination system. It usually sends a message in the unidirectional way, and it will not wait for the system to respond, or there will be no two-way directional flow for this kind of messages. So SIU is that kind of message. You will understand that later when we discuss about appointments, but this is the acronym. Full form is scheduling information unsolicited. Then we have labs. So we have two message codes for labs that we usually use. It's not that these are the only two that we have. We have again OMP, we have RAS. So there are many other message codes that are used in the HL7 industry. What we are seeing are the most common ones, which will cover almost 70 to 80% of the implementations. Okay, so if you get an idea of these message codes or message types that we have, then later it's not a difficult task to understand other message types or other event types. Next, we have charges related information, which is transacted through a DFT, which is detailed financial transaction. So it is represented with the help of that particular word or acronym. So if you observe, each and every message code has its own meaning. So it's not that they gave whatever name they like. I mean, these codes are defined by HL7 standard, and they did not give it just like that. Each and every one, every message code has its own full form, and it will give a systematic representative meaning. So now that we have seen what are the categories that we have and each category how they have a message code, now let's further break it down and actually look at the events, which is the uh, actual micro unit of any HL7 message. So if we talk about registration, from registration perspective, we have many events that will really happen in the real-time world. Patient admitted to ER, patient admitted to inpatient, or patient is coming for a day visit, or patient is coming up for a follow-up visit. So there are many scenarios, okay, and many scenarios can represent different event types. But we will commonly look, as I said, we will again be looking common scenarios which we come across. So as part of registration, we have two events which we famously talk about. One is new patient registration, and the other one is update patient information. So whenever a patient arrives at the hospital, the receptionist will go ahead and ask the patient, what are your details? Are you here for the first time or have you been here? And so on. If he's here for the first time, they will collect patient details and create a patient record for him. If he has been already there, they will confirm various other details. If they have to change anything, they will change, which is nothing but updating patient information. So new patient registration and patient information, update patient information are two events which will fall under the bucket of registration. Then you have appointment scheduling. We have three different events that are possible as part of appointments. So you create a new appointment, then you update that particular appointment, and then you delete. Delete in the sense not literally deleting it. Whenever I refer to delete, it means that we are just wiping out or canceling that particular appointment from the system. Apparently, we don't delete healthcare related data. Yeah, that is the industry standard. They archive the data and move it to some other location or some other place or some other tables in the database, but they never usually delete the data from the database. And that will help us to keep the trial of what happened. Even if we enter some data information incorrectly, archiving that will be a lot more helpful, because down the line, if some treatment is given based on that archived data, then they can quickly see whether there is some archived data or not, and check whether incorrect treatment is provided to patient in based on that archived data or based on that incorrect data, and there will be many other purposes. So apparently, just keep in mind that usually we don't delete. I mean, systems don't allow to delete the data. Um, So these three events are a part of appointment schedule. Next, we have charges. So charges are nothing but the financial related aspects where you will share charge related information between EHR and PM. So we have only one event possible as part of charges. That is nothing but sending charge information. So now that we have understood what are the different events that we have already seen the message codes. Oh, okay. We have one more category. Sorry. So we have labs. So as part of labs, we have orders and results. So orders will be placed from EHR, lab will receive the order, and lab will respond back with the help of a result message. Okay, so that's the cycle, or basically this. If you look at this, these events are completing the basic workflow, basic cycle of the workflow within hospital industry. Patient gets registered and then gets an appointment done, and then meets the doctor to and have some orders and results from the doctor, and finally sends out the charges to the PM system. PM system will receive that charge related information and they will generate the claims, which is a different ballgame altogether. Generating claims needs a lot of other aspects to be involved, like validating the billable codes, validating the diagnosis code, and coders going ahead and checking whether those diagnosis codes added are correct or not. They will do a lot of things and then they will generate a claim. So whatever happens after the charge is sent to the EHR system, sent to the PM system is a different case altogether. So now we will understand, now that we have seen already what are the message codes for each and every category that we have, registration, appointment, charges, and all. Now we will see how these events that we have seen here are represented in terms of HL7. So as I told you, HL7 has given specific event representations, or you can say, you can call them as symbol or you can call them as code, whatever you are comfortable with. Apparently they have given some standard representations. So we have seen that registration is represented with the help of ADT, right? So ADT is the message code, ADT is admit, discharge, and transfer. So patient coming and getting himself register or update his own patient information falls under ADT category, and they are represented with the help of A04 or A28 for a registration message, and A08 or A31 for update of existing patient details. Okay, so these two events are used in order to represent a registration message. Now, how do you use it, or where do you use it, and um, how do you call it? So at any given point of time, if you want to represent and tell that this HL7 message is for a new patient registration, then it will have a message type in the HL7 message where it will have ADT plus A04 or ADT plus A28. So ADT, A28 together they are called as message type. Okay, individually this is called as message code, this is called as event type, and together we call them as message type. So ADT A31 is a message type which will represent that it is an update of patient information message. So if you have observed the HL7 message, in MSH 9 we have this representation, or we have this code message type ADT A08. Okay, which indicates that this HL7 message is kind of representing an event where patient's information is updated and that information is being sent in this HL7 message. Okay, so ADT A08 is the HL7 message, and we are just representing update of patient information. Similarly, we have this concept for the other messages as well. So SIU message has three events, right? We have seen that it has three events. So each event has its own event type. So S12 represents new appointment, S14 represents update of existing appointment, and then S15 represents cancellation of an appointment. Okay, in the same way, we have for DFT. DFT is nothing but detailed financial transaction. So it has only one event type, which is nothing but PO3. So DFT PO3 always represents a charge information. And then we have ORM. ORM is nothing but observation request message, which means an order message. And you are sending this order message to the lab system, and it is represented with the help of ORM O01. And we have one more, which is ORU. So ORU R01 represents the result message. So ORU full form is observation, result, unsolicited, and unsolicited is nothing but again unidirectional, which means it doesn't expect a response back or it doesn't have a pairing response back from the destination system. So ORU R01 is for results. So these are the various events. These are only few of the events that we are seeing. How many we are seeing? We are looking at 3, 5, 7. We are just looking at 7 events as of now, right? But there are more than 80 event types in HL7. Okay, it's not that we'll be using each and every event type. So yeah, it is a standard, right? So they will try to accommodate everything that is possible in the entire world, which is why we end up in having so many event types. But what are the ones that are frequently used? These are the ones that are frequently used, and you will see that in real-time world, 70 to 80% of interface implementations will have these events only. Okay. But as I said, not limited to these. We have other event types like query response interfaces. You have MDM related interfaces. You have VXU, which is for immunization, data sharing with state registry. So there are many other message types, event types, which you can learn on the go. But basic generic flow is this one, which will cover all the basic aspects of it. So that is all about the events and message types. Any questions? All right, so I'm not hearing anything. Let's jump on to the next topic. So now that we understood how to navigate through HL7 message, how to read an HL7 message, and then we have seen what are the different events that are possible in the real-time HL7 world, and how these message types are present to what they are communicating. So now by looking at a message, in a message, if you see if it is SIUS 14, you will immediately understand that this HL7 message is transacting the data for appointments. And that too specifically, it is transacting the data for update of existing appointment information, right? So that is how we go ahead and understand just by looking at the HL7 message. So now we have understood what message types are. So let's get a little deeper into it. So as an HL7 engineer, either interface engineer or implementation engineer or a developer, which is even more intense than the other profiles like implementation or business analyst, you have to clearly know what are the different segments that we have as part of each message type and what are the fields, what do they represent, what is the functional role of that field. So we will be taking a deeper look at HL7 message. We'll be seeing what are individual segments that we have, and we'll also understand what are the fields and what is their functional aspects, what is the functional aspects of those fields down the line. So first we'll start with an ADT message. So ADT A04 is a new patient registration message. So it will be pretty easy for us to understand and relate it to the real-time world because we see this common scenario around us, patient getting registered, update of patient information and all. So if you look at message type, as I said, it is the combination of message code and the event type. So this is message code and it is event type. And an ADT HL7 message will have these common segments. Again, not limited. We might have other segments as well, but these are the things that we usually commonly see. So let's look at these segments. So we have a message, and as I told you yesterday, each and every segment's name itself will tell you what kind of data it is going to transmit. So a message is nothing but message segment header. So it is the main segment of any HL7 message, not just an ADT04. Any HL7 message will not be there without a message segment. Okay, it is like the cover of any textbook or cover of any any novel or authoring book or something. Without the name of the book, we won't have a book without a name, right? In the same way, we won't have an HL7 message without a message segment. We have EVN next, which is event segment, then PID, which is patient identification segment, PV1 patient visit, GT1 guarantor, and IN1 insurance. So let us take a look at each and every segment. So our learning pattern would be look at the message type and understand what are the segments that could be part of that message type, and then go through each segment and understand each and every field, drill down till the field level to understand what is the practical use of it, what is the functional aspect of that particular field. We'll drill down or we'll root down till that point. So now let us start with message segment. So with respect to message segment, we have HL7 messages. As I said, each and every HL7 message will have an message segment for sure. Just give me 1 minute, guys. All right. So, sorry guys. So IN1 sorry, not IN1, but MSH segment. Um, each and every HL7 message will have a message segment for sure. And these are the fields of a MSH segment. So let us understand what is the purpose of this table. So any HL7 message will have this kind of representation. So if you look at any implementation guide or if you go through any website, you might find this kind of table. So this table has these fields. The first field is going to represent the field number, MSH 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. So each and every segment has multiple fields, right? So each and every field will have certain number. So that sequence is represented here. Next, you have length. So length, if you have a specific number within that length field, then you will have the number, the length of that number, the number of that particular number of characters that particular field can accept. And if it is 0, it means that there is no limitation on how many characters that field can have. But if it has a number, then there is limitation. So for example, MSH2 is 5, which means it cannot have more than 5 characters. MSH10 is 199. It cannot have more than 199 characters, and so on. Next, you have DT, which is data type. So each and every field has its own data type. So there are around 90 data types in HL7 version 2. And each field has its own data type. We have 2 separate sessions exclusively on data types. We'll talk more about data types at that point of time. First, we'll understand what is each field, and then it will be easy for us to relate why we have so many data types. So we'll take a look at the data types later. But yeah, each and every field has its own data type, which will be represented in the table itself. Next, you have optionality, which is nothing but it will tell you whether that particular field is a required field or an optional field. Okay, required in the sense this field, there should be data within this field for sure, and you are compelled to go ahead and send information in that particular field. Optional in the sense it is okay to omit or it is okay to leave that field as blank. For example, MSH9 is a message type. You should always have MSH9 in the HL7 message. You can never have an HL7 message without MSH9 present within that particular message. In optionality, you will also be seeing few other representations or few other terms or few other keywords. So usually you will see R means required, O means optional, C means carriage return. Sorry, C means we have B first for um, backward compatibility, and then you have C for conditionally required, and then you have W for withdrawn. Okay, so these are the representations that you will be seeing commonly across the fields. So for this segment, we don't see we have W here, which is withdrawn. Yeah, we have W here as well, and here you have backward compatibility and so on. So you will see that this will be there. I'll tell you why we have them, but these are the 5 common representations that you'll be seeing for fields in case if you see. Okay, so right now, this particular table that you're seeing is prepared or is made based on HL7 version 2.7. But let me tell you, we are not limited to any specific version in this training. We are looking at holistic perspective of version 2.x so that we can get an idea of how to deal with various versions. Um, so it is not limited to 2.7. So for 2.7, these representations are valid. 2.7 EVN1 is withdrawn, but 2.5, 2.3 might have this field. And for 2.3, again, you have PID2 being used, PID4 being used, and PID13 is retained for backward compatibility with older versions, which is 2.3, 2.3.1, 2.5, and so on. So don't worry much about these fields. We'll be will not will not be learning based on these fields, but we'll be learning based on other aspects. The fields that you're seeing highlighted in green are the ones which we mostly use in the HL7 calls or whenever we are implementing any interface, and these are the fields that you should know, you should have an idea of, because these will be the common discussion points during the calls. So um, I did not highlight them based on the fact that whether that field is required or not. I did highlight them based on the importance of that field. Okay, so optionality will be there. It is necessary when you're developing an interface, but for our learning purposes, concentrate mainly on these fields that are highlighted in green. Okay, next we have repetition. So repetition is nothing otherwise. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right, actually I got disconnected. So yeah, so I was talking about the repetition. So when we talk about repetitions, we see that, give me one second. Yeah, so when we talk about repetitions, we are telling, or it has been defined by HL7 that this field, whether this field can repeat or not. If it can repeat, how many repetitions it can have. So as of now, we are seeing everything has one, which means it can have only one instance of that particular field. If it can repeat, then you will have something like this star, where it says, yes, this field can repeat any number of times. So that is where repetition separator comes into play, which is nothing but tilde. So we will take a look at this with an example to understand that better. Then you have table. So I will talk about table as well when we get to the example of it, because there are different kinds of table. There are two different kinds of tables that we'll be talking about. So to give you a brief introduction about tables, um, HL7 will tell you what data should transact through a particular field, and they have defined few tables, and data should be sent from those tables only in certain fields. Okay, for example, you have message 15 where you have accept acknowledgement type, and here it says table number 155. So there are hundreds of tables. Out of hundreds of tables, table 155 has certain data, and when we are sending some information in message 15, we have to pick the information from that table only as per HL7 standards. We are not supposed to send whatever we want to send it in message 15. We are compelled to send what is there in that table. So that is what this table representation means. We'll talk about restrictions, what we can use, why we cannot use the data that we like, and do we have a possibility of using data as per our will and wish in certain fields where we have table number. We'll talk about all of these things with examples down the line. And next you have name of the field. So finally this will represent the name of the field, where you can go ahead and see what is the name that we have. So as I said, concentrate more on the fields that are highlighted in green. That will give you a functional view of what we are going through. So let's start with each and every field. So msh1 is field separator, msh2 is encoding characters. So there is one small exception from what we have seen yesterday. Yesterday I told you that each and every segment has fields, and each field is separated with the help of a pipe, and whatever is present between two compartments or two pipes is called as a field. So this is field number 1, field number 2, field number 3, 4, 5, and so on, right? There is one exception only with MSH segment. Okay, that exception is nothing but when you look at MSH segment, the pipe itself is called as field number 1. Apparently, from what we have seen as per our concept, this should be field number 1, this should be field number 2, this should be field number 3. But here with MSH segment, we have one small exception. That's nothing but the pipe itself is called as field number 1. And then you have field number 2, field number 3, field number 4, field number 5, and so on. Okay, so this is one small exception for HL7
Uh,
MSH segment.
I have a question here.
Yeah.
So when you said that pipe itself is field number one,
Hmm.
so the only pipe delimiter after the MSH is considered one.
Yes, only the pipe. The pipe symbol itself is called as field number 1.
So we have one more just in front of HL. If you can, here,
Right.
yeah.
This
So
one, yeah.
so then that would be two.
This entire thing would be 2.
Okay,
And then from there on, you have this as 3, this as 4, this as 5, and so on.
okay, got it.
So this is the only exception that we have with MSH 1 and 2. But if you look at other fields, then whatever is there between two pipe symbols is called as a field.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So MSH1 is pipe, MSH2 is nothing but encoding characters. That's what we are seeing here, right? So we have encoding characters in MSH2 and rest of them. Again, from MSH3, 4, 5, 6, we'll take a look at them tomorrow. Any questions with any other questions that you have apart from MSH1 and 2? All right, so I'm not hearing anything. So we'll conclude today's session here. So we'll catch up tomorrow morning and we'll continue looking at this table, and we'll see what are the other fields that we have, what are these tables and all. And we will also take a deeper look at other segments as well, one by one. We'll take a look at EVN, we'll take a look at PID, and we'll see what is guarantor, what is patient visit, insurances and all. All right, thank you everyone. You all have a very good day. Rachel, you can stay back, rest can drop.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone. You all have a good day.
Thank you.
Hey Anand, are you there?